One thing I want to start with, Steve, just really quickly. This content looks like it's really difficult to collect. There's like a lot of work that goes into flying that precisely and collecting the images. Can you just tell us how easy what's the process?
So there's multiple processes that make this easy and difficult. I best describe it as a combination of art and science. What we're doing in photogrammetry, especially when you're doing 3D models. Orthomosaics are a little simpler, but first there's the science, or the flight of it, as Jeff was saying. So airspace requirements, making sure that you're legally flying, making sure you're not flying over the freeway, for example. At 350 feet, which is what I flew the shopping center, I got the freeway in a lot of the shot, but I wasn't flying over the freeway, right? Because you shouldn't be flying over the freeway. It's regulatorily wise. So that's part of it. So knowing what your end product is, or what the end result is what helps really determine that.
Don't your thumbs get tired flying?
Yeah, so got it. That's what you're going for. So the flights are fully autonomous. That's what you're going for. So there's a couple different ways to do it, but think of it as flying like a lawnmower. And because the way photogrammetry works is that you need overlap. And you need to see overlap, and Lorraine can speak to it even better than I can. But when you have a point, you want to have different angles of that same point, especially for the 3D model, is to get that 3D. And so the autonomous flight is what helps make that happen.
Yeah.
That's your question.
Yeah, you draw a square or rectangle or shape, tell it how high, camera angle, and you hit go. Yeah. And I've had experiences, my company, we station ourselves in fast food parking lots. So that one of us can go get the burrito while the other one sits in the lounge chair eating it, watching the drone go like this for 2 hours.
It's like watching paint dry, but then there's the art of it.
Yes.
The art of it is the hard part, right? And to create a 3D model, what's your oblique, or what angle is the camera? How sunny is the day, right? Is a sunny day or a cloudy day better for that environment? That's where things start, and then the software kicks in, and then I call it recipes. Is what images do you feed to the software to get the best results? And I often play with lots of different choices, right? Straight down, angle.
Yeah, and if I could add, in that list of resources that I provided for you guys, we did a webinar that's recorded, so you can view that recording. It's just an hour, and it goes over the best practices for flying drones. And we talk about those zigzag patterns, or if you're going around, if you're actually looking at a particular building, then you're actually going around many, many times. Very different if you're actually trying to then just collect data to cover a construction site. So there's different patterns of collection that are required, and in that webinar, it goes through those with one of my friends. He's a professor at a university, and he flies a lot of drones for a lot of massive projects. So he gets really excited about these, and so we've got him recorded. And also we have a drone podcast series that there's a link to it. There's 4 sessions, and it was with Directions Magazine. It's a geospatial magazine that works with industry and scientific providers, and so that podcast could also give you additional resources to help with best practices.
During our break, if you could put that resource list back up, that one slide.
Right, okay. And it's going to be available, are these slides going to be available to everybody?
We're going to find a way to make that happen.
Okay.
Yes, there's a slide, yes. Jeff, but either way, if you want to take a screenshot. And then Jeff, you want to say
I was just going to add real quick, because I know we're running over time, but the analogy I give people when they say, wow, that looks easy, I say, so does fly fishing, if you know what you're doing. And you got to do about 8 or 10 or 12 things concurrently right all the time. And if you're doing it, it looks easy. And yeah, you're sitting in a lounge chair watching your drone fly a model pattern, but it ain't that easy. Any one thing can go wrong. So you got to be real skilled as a pilot to intercede in an emergency. You got to be very knowledgeable in software and hardware technology. If the wind kicks it out of its GIS or GPS lock, you got to know what to do. So my advice again is take advantage of the resources that people put available like Lorraine, and get together with a mentor and have somebody go out as a guide before you try taking on bear hunting.
All right, let's take a few, we have about 5 minutes for the panel. Some questions, anybody? Bring the mic.
Great presentations, thanks. In terms of for the drone service providers, for Jeff and Steve, your expertise really is in piloting and data collection. How much do you need to know about all the vertical markets that you work for? How deep do you have to get into that? And then also, when you look at customers, is there some point where construction companies are doing it themselves and have their own drone program, or how do you look at that?
I'll go ahead and take that and then pass off to Stephen and Lorraine. Is number one, when we have customers, the first thing you want to ask them is, do you want to build internal capabilities, or you just want the hole and hire somebody to dig it for you, or a combination of the two? So most of our customers, they want to build internal capacities, but then they don't have the budget to have the equipment or the expertise to do some of the harder things that they need to do. So we come alongside of them. And then to address your first question, how much do you need to know about the vertical market? And that depends. For example, when we started an agricultural business, we didn't have an agronomist, so we had to learn how to interpret the data and speak the language of the farmer, or else we couldn't convey actionable items. Same thing, I gotta learn land surveyor to talk to a land surveyor. I gotta learn thermal and electricity to talk to a solar guy. I gotta know dynamics of a wind turbine. Yes, I need to know that because I'm the sales guy, I'm the project manager. Do my pilots need to know that? Probably to a lesser degree, but somebody in the organization needs to understand it.
Yeah, I would agree. Our experience is we tend to reach out to, if we don't have a SME in-house, reach out to those organizations and work together. And sometimes, or a lot of times, they don't know what they want or what they need. Just like when you said with that patch of grass, we had similar situations on construction sites where they're renting porta potties, and they were monitoring them, not purposely, but just monitoring the site with drone activity. And come to find out, they were actually being overcharged for these. It became an asset management situation where they were able to say, no, we've got proof from these drone images that we did not have. We only had 2 rather than 6, but we're billed for 6, right? So I think it's just experience, and as things get published more, these use cases, the industry is opening up more and more, and I think we're going to see that today with more user case studies.
Yeah, it's a great question. I think one of the key things for anybody that's teaching is there's no such thing as a drone industry. There are industries that use drones.
Right.
So it's really important that you have some expertise about the industry. And so, and construction I have very little industry knowledge about, but through clients, I now know what a superintendent is and his or her role on site and things like that. But for example, for that site, for the big box site, I could have been, and there are local subcontractors that I'm sure are taking pretty pictures. But that's very different than somebody that anticipates collecting something that could be reused in what I would call data. And by me flying that data model that allows us to count the cars or see the how much vegetation is in this property, takes some knowledge of the industry, or at least makes you try to second guess ahead of somebody. So knowing the industry is really important.
We have another question up front. We have a second microphone now.
Yeah.
Sir, in agronomy, are you using drones equipped with LiDAR to do yield and capacity estimations of the crops?
Yeah, primarily the go-to sensor. Again, once you've got the aviation side down and you're able to operate the aircraft safely, as was mentioned, the aircraft's just a platform to carry a sensor, and the more sophisticated the sensor, usually the more valuable the data. The go-to tool in agriculture is a multi-light spectral sensor. And so we've been partners with MicaSense and used the Red Edge, but we've recently switched and now we're partners with Sony on their Fast Stitch Ag because we can do a couple sections in a day, process in the field in 5 minutes, download it to an app, walk out and ground truth it on the spot. Now, do we use we've tried LiDAR to do yield counts, And we found that in the multi-light spectral, the near infrared and pixelization is a better way to count watermelons. If you're using pumpkins, because of the color differentiation, you use the pixel colorization. LiDAR will give you more of a terrain model, not necessarily a crop count.
And you can still get a point cloud with just optical and.
Are you going to the cloud or is it both?
As you wish.
What was the question?
Data relay.
Are you throwing the data into the cloud or just keeping it local? And it was as you wish.
Thank you. All right, we got time for one more question. There will be a breakout session that this group will be in later as well. So if you want more time with them and learn more about their procedures, you can join their breakout session as well.
So I have a question related to service, field service, and somebody mentioned solar. I was curious if you have any more examples.
We work quite a bit in renewables. I don't know that, I don't want to step over.
I'm currently not. I work for a company that did solar panel inspection, so I'm real familiar with that
Yes,
industry.
we don't do necessarily small, residential rooftop solar. We do large industrial solar out in, large solar arrays. And solar is, you should be using a fast frame 640 radiometric sensor for it. And there's a lot of nuances because one is what kind of panel is it? Is it crystal photovoltaic, or is it thin film? Is it a fixed panel, or is it rotating? What's the reflective light? There's everything that we do. We have a flight manual that's probably 100 pages long, but then we have SOPs for every application, standard operating procedures. So it's a checklist. So when we got a solar project, there's a lot of pre-planning, a lot of the weather, a lot of on-site stuff to make sure you capture the data. And then once you get the data captured, believe me, you want some software to analyze that data because you'll go crazy looking at solar panels all day long, looking for defective cells. So solar is a bit of unique because again, it has lots of variables, but just about every application does. I'm sorry if I didn't address your question, but hopefully that's helpful.
No, that's good.
All right. And just a little bit I know about solar is that when you have a bad cell, it becomes excessively hot, hotter than the rest of the panel. And with infrared, you can literally just fly over. Any panel is normal, is black. Any panel that needs to be replaced is bright red orange.
And that's a fire hazard. That's a very, very big fire hazard.
Yeah. So then you can just identify which ones need to be replaced by flying an entire array and put it in a column.